as we welcome James Ham here into the
Oh,
show.
hater, man.
Uh, I mean, I can imagine, and I bet it's delightful. But James just retweeted this, and it's worth repeating. No player in NBA history has averaged 20 plus points, 12 plus rebounds, and 5 plus assists in a season without making the All Star game. Domantas Sabonis could be the first.
Could be. Like there's a question. I mean, I don't know what the NBA is doing. Adam Silver made an egregious error here to snub Domantas Sabonis.
Hammer,
And
if I'm reading this right, the follow up tweet, if I'm reading this right, there are two 19, 12, and 5 seasons in league history without an All Star selection. Domantas Sabonis last year and Domantas Sabonis this year.
Yeah.
Hammer, do you think that
Wow.
there is a possibility, and D'Lo kind of floated this out there, that Sabonis turned down the NBA's invite?
No. I can't imagine. I mean, he has a bonus tied to an All-Star appearance.
Oh, no, he ain't turning nothing down, man.
I mean, I think it's $1.25 million.
He ain't turning nothing down.
But
Matter of fact,
no.
I'm here, guys. Do you want to pick
Well,
me?
not only that, but
Maybe
I
he
think,
was napping again and he missed the call.
yeah, I also think, Domas, I mean, it's possible he's going on vacation, but for a guy with 2 young kids and it, like not knowing if you're going to be going or not, I'm assuming he's just going to be hanging out in Napa at his other home, like right down the street from the All-Star game. So, yeah, I don't know. This is again, like there are no reasons to be a conspiracy theorist. This is just it just like snubs its nose in the face of anything that's logical ever. And I honestly believe that, when the coaches named the reserves, that there was some consideration for Sacramento put in and what has happened here this season with the firing of Mike Brown. But at this point, I just, how can you not replace Anthony Davis, another big man, with Domantas Sabonis? And to me, like, what are you going to do when half of your stars, including very likely Kyrie Irving, because we're only halfway through the season and he's already missed a handful of games. Like half of your stars are not going to be on the All NBA team because your 65 game rule. Domantas Sabonis will be on the All NBA team. How can he be a top 15 player in the league last year and I believe the year before? How can he be considered a top 15 player, but he's not good enough to be a top 24 player for the All-Star game? And that to me is it's an embarrassment for the league. Absolute embarrassment for the league. But hey, I think we just got the weekend off if you want it.
No, you don't want to go to the All Star game, James? You're credentialed.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Looks well. Looks like it's all falling onto one person's shoulders. Kenny Caraway is representing ESPN 1320 at the All
Come
Star
on,
game.
13.
Kenny.
Get on my back.
Front row All-Star Kenny.
I'm not driving to San Francisco during this madhouse that's going to be this weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be a madhouse. It's going.
I was, but I did. I saw Oasis and Nico. I was like, hey, maybe I'll. Who am I kidding? I'm not doing that.
It like I'm the rookie of the group. I've never been to All-Star.
That's good.
All-Star weekend,
No, you
so
should
I
go.
think I gotta.
Yeah.
You absolutely should experience it once.
I
You might
agree.
love it. Yeah, you might love it. But you should absolutely experience it once.
I also like the people watch.
Well, then you're gonna have a blast. You are gonna have a blast if you can get into Kenny Smith's party. People watch outside that door is a blast, and you'll have a good time. You'll have a good time.
All right.
Hammer, it's over. It's a dub. What is your feeling about Saturday's game?
Oh boy. I don't know. That was a weird one to cover. I mean, the only reason you had any opportunity to win that game in all honesty, this is such a weird statement, is because Jake LaRavia came off the bench and gave your team a boost that you didn't expect and was so good in like a minute that the entire tenor of the building changed, the crowd changed, everything changed, and you were able to ride the wave and somehow come back. I thought like DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk just didn't come out to play at all, and that was stunning in the first quarter to watch them just like be totally ineffective. I think at half they combined for 1 point on 0 for 5 shooting, the two of them, and to have your team be anywhere in the vicinity and be able to come back and win a game, to me was shocking. But I also think, like what that showed you is what it looks like when you have a really good backup center, and what it shows you when you have a player who comes out and plays off your bench with a whole bunch of energy and heart like Laravia did. And so I think the bigger question is like, where were these guys a month ago? Where were they 2 months ago? But for right now, the additions uh, made the bench an addition, not a subtraction, for the first time in what felt like months.
It feels like that's kind of like what happens on a good team sometime. Like your starters ain't always going to have it. What's the game we always talk about, or we've referenced a couple of times, that Kings-Memphis game where the Memphis bench outscored the starters.
Mhm.
Those starters weren't ready to play. They didn't have it that day or whatever. But when you have a bench, and LaRavia ironically was on that bench as well, was part of that bench as well. Sometimes that happens. Like you have situations where it's at least the start of the game isn't all on the starters playing at the super high level. They may not have it. You can go to your bench and they can pick you up and get you back into the game and get you into a position where you can still win a game. And that's one of the things that was missing with the bench, or the lack thereof, before Saturday, so to speak. So hopefully they don't have to deal with that all the time. But if it's 15-6 or 21-6 or whatever in the first 5 minutes, just, this one's done. Like, these guys are going to have to play the rest of the game. These starters are going to play the rest of the game to get back into it because the bench isn't any good. Now you got a situation where you can get a little bit of spark off the bench to calm things down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but this is too many times. Man, I don't, like a bench is supposed to be there to maintain and possibly improve your situation, not to save your butt. And to me, like you got to come out with more. And this has been a problem all season long with this team. And I think a lot of people wanted to point fingers at De'Aaron Fox for the reason why the Kings got off to slow starts all the time. But the issue hasn't changed. And so I'm glad they were able to recover, and because it's a lot more enjoyable to watch a game like that as opposed to like a 40-point blowout, which that looked like it was going to be early in the game. But like, look, the Kings don't have any wiggle room left. Like they have to win games like this. They've got to win the game tonight against a team that's totally depleted. They've got to find a way to go into New Orleans and put on a show against a team they just beat the other night, but who seemingly has their numbers still and has the ability to just run them over when they want to. So this team has to figure out ways to not go down by 20 in the first half. Because, I'd say 85, 90% of the time you're going to lose that game. And so I hope that they learn something. But like, how many times do I have to hope that this team learns something and then watch them go out and do it again?
Why do you think that's happening? Why do you think they're struggling so much at the beginning of games?
I don't know. Like it doesn't make a ton of sense, because it's not just like, at this point, it's not just one coach. It's not just one group of players. It's something that has like followed this team around, and they've got to figure out ways to do it. And, I think it's interesting, even in this game where they came back and won, it wasn't until really like the third quarter that we saw the Domas and Malik Monk pick and roll game pick up, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 they score a whole bunch of points in a row. And I think personally that woke Monk up, like getting in the pick and roll game with Domas and just feeding the big man and having him go crazy. Like there isn't a lot of rhyme or reason to what the Kings do. I mean, last couple of games, Domas has barely shot the ball at all. They forgot about Keegan Murray for 4 or 5 games, and he didn't even get an opportunity. And then all of a sudden, he's waking up. Like the bumps and bruises of changing players midstream, especially star level players in your starting lineup. I mean, that is going to have like an impact. But at the same time, the first game that they sort of ran out these guys, even if it was just Levine, Doug Christie made such a big major point in pregame. He's like, everyone goes and plays pickup. It's like, you're playing pickup and someone says, "Hey, I got to go home," and you're like, "Okay, who else can jump in?" Like these guys have played basketball like this their whole lives. And to go out there and act like you don't know how to play basketball because someone is different in a different position, it's kind of weird. I mean, there can be some mistakes and there can be some clunkiness, but there shouldn't just be a downright like failure to learn how to play basketball again. And so, yeah, this team, I mean, they're interesting, but they have an opportunity right here to make up some ground and make you forget about some of these bad losses early in the season. But you got to show up.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think could be going on is, these guys are trying to fit in, not fit out, as LeBron would say. They're trying to fit in. Zach trying to fit in. Jared, DeRozan trying to make sure Zach fits in, and Sabonis and all these other guys. Malik trying to conform into a point guard and all this other stuff. And, and I appreciate all that, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Zach LaVine, we brought you here to score, shoot the basketball, be aggressive, get after it. DeMar DeRozan, and I know maybe James and others see differently on this one. DeMar DeRozan, you're not here to be a table setter. Shoot the basketball. They had 3 shot attempts halfway through the third quarter. Shoot the rock. That's what you're here to do. Malik, I need you to be a little bit more of a point guard now with the guys out there, but don't forget that's what you're here to do as well. And I think a lot of the times in this past 3 games or so, the lack of aggression and the indecisiveness comes from, trying to get a feel and not step on any toes and all this other stuff. And if I was Doug, I would talk to some of those guys and be like, this is why you're here. This is why you're in the league. I'll figure everything else out as far as setting the other guys up and making sure they're good and making sure we're on the same page. But Zach and DeMar specifically, like, do your job. Your job is to put the ball in the basket. And I want to see them be more aggressive with that moving forward.
Yeah, I get that too. I think I want to see them do their job, but within the confines of the offense. Like Kings basketball, like this entire season, the last 3 years, at least it has like some basic tenets, and the players need to play within those tenets, and it's on them as basketball players to use their special skills within the offense, within the flow of what's happening. And that's something that I think Zach is quietly starting to figure out, is how does he fit in and sort of play within the confines of this. But again, there are games when I think DeMar is absolutely spectacular, and other games where like it's just too much. And so like what you said, he just needs to hoist. I agree. Him taking 1 shot in the first half, I don't know. It almost feels intentional when that happens, because there are, 15 other games or maybe 40 other games this season where you're like, okay, man, you weren't shy to take a shot that wasn't there before. And so I'm always like just watching it sort of play out and wondering what's going to happen, and seeing who steps up from one night to the next. And there is at least some consistency that happens, typically, and we haven't seen that lately. And yeah, I mean, the fact that what are they, 3-6 over the last 9? That's to be expected. They've had a lot of like internal and external strife. But again, like if you want to be a playoff team, you got to push the noise out and go play. And again, if I'm Domantas Sabonis tonight, I'm motivated to, and if I'm his teammates, I'm motivated for him to go and put up 40 and 25 and 15 on this Dallas Mavericks team that somehow got an all-star when the Kings didn't. And so, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at.
You feel like they can pull anything from that game on Saturday? given the fact, like, I think it's a, yeah, I think Doug even said, no, we got the job done. It's good, but it's not good enough. And you have the, extreme lows of the just instant 20-point deficit, the thrilling comeback, then the 18-point lead, and then you kind of lose the 18-point lead, and you scratch and claw to hang on to a victory. Is that one, like, can you draw from that, or is it just like, all right, we got it, now let's get right here versus Dallas coming up on Monday?
Yeah, I think you can learn something from it for sure. I think what I learned is that when you add, Valanciunas and Laravia to that bench, all of a sudden the other players fit into their roles way better. And it exposed once again the glaring issues that this team had early in the season. But, I don't know about you guys, but when Trey Lyles has to be your sixth or seventh best player, that's realistically not who Trey Lyles should be for your team or for anyone else. If he's your seventh, eighth, and ninth, then you're a much better team. And I think Jonas stepping on the court instantly gave the Kings just like the seventh man on the rotation. And I think that makes Keon Ellis just a much better six man in your rotation. And then it allows, again, Trey and Laravia to be like the seventh and eighth best players or eighth and ninth best players in your rotation. All of a sudden I saw a team that has 9 players that you feel comfortable running out there each and every night. And that's not something that I felt most of this season, where it just really felt like maybe they had 7. And if someone miraculously got hot, they might have an 8th. But for the most part, it was like 7th and guys way, way out of position as far as they should be in the rotation and what's asked of them in the rotation. And so I think they look a lot better out of nowhere. And I like Malik Monk playing with that second unit and really running those guys as opposed to that first unit, which is it's going to be difficult to get shots. And I get it, but I feel bad for Keegan Murray, who is all of a sudden the 5th option without any question. And that's just a tough place to be in when you're expected to, excel in your 3rd season.
Trista's in the chat reminding us she knew Devin Carter stunk.
She did. She did hit us to Devin Carter early on.
She said, something's off. Something don't feel right. Man, pause. She was right.
One of the things though with Keegan though, and I guess it's a little easier for me to say without being in that situation, is like he gotta adjust and be productive. Like I look at him and I say he's had an opportunity over about two years for somebody to look at him and say, like, no, this is the guy that we're gonna have as the second best scorer. We don't need to go get anybody else. We can go get these ancillary guys, these role player guys. And he didn't do that. Like, he didn't do that. I never, at the end of last year, I didn't look at Keegan Murray and say, I'm good with them not going to get another score, because if something goes wrong, we got Keegan Murray here. Didn't feel that way. They needed more, because when Malik went down and it was just De'Aaron and him, that wasn't enough, and it wasn't versatile enough. So they went and they got some different scores. Now he's in a little bit of a different role, and knock down your open jump shots, get on the boards, figure out a different thing. For me, it's not a poor Keegan situation. It's hey, your role has changed. Be excellent in your role. Like, I don't want to see him going 1 for 7 from beyond the arc. Like, you're getting wide open looks. Knock down the shots. Knock them down.
No, I mean, I get that. And I agree that he needs to be a better shooter and he needs to be a more consistent shooter. I'd also say, like, he's the one who's asked to play defense, where, the other 4 starters realistically don't have to do what he has to do. And, so yeah, I mean, he's got to be more consistent as a scorer. I can't believe, like, the crazy stat. He hasn't scored 20 points in a game since before Thanksgiving. And to me, that's just absolutely crazy. But yeah, I mean, Keegan's like, he's hit 19 a couple of times, but I mean, he hasn't scored since, I think it's November 24th is the last time he scored 20 points in a game. And he's only done it, I think, 2 times all season where he scored 20. And I don't really think that was the plan coming in. It's just the way the season's played out, and certainly when you moved Malik Monk into the starting lineup, it just pushed Keegan further down on the who's getting fed, and it's tough to be consistent when you can go an entire half with one shot attempt, and it's not like he's passing up 6 shot attempts. He's just not getting the ball, not getting opportunities. And so I don't think he's been forcing things, but in those situations, you got to go get rebounds and you got to go try to score yourself. And even then, even when he does do that, I still don't feel like his teammates ever feed him and try to keep it going. So I think it's a little bit of everything. And I haven't lost faith in him as a player. But I think at some point, the Kings, I mean, he's got to be wondering what their offer is going to look like this summer when it comes to an extension, and whether he would even accept it, whether he just wants to play out another season and see how that goes, and then go from there. Because the extension that he would get now versus the extension he would have got last summer is, I think, completely different.
I was just going to say one more thing about Keegan. The one thing that I would like to see the Kings do more, and nobody's done it, whether it was Mike or Doug or anything like that, is get him on the block a little bit more and work on his post game. I think he's a little bit too reliant, or that offense is too reliant as him being the stretch 4 or something like that. And this guy, he's about 6'9", 6'10". Certain situations, like they run that cross screen action to get DeMar DeRozan the ball on the block or close to the block. Maybe they could do that a little bit more with Keegan Murray. It doesn't feel like that's ever going to happen, and there's probably a reason for that. But I think that would be another spot on the floor where they could try to get him involved. And you ain't got to do it for 20 times, but once or twice 2 times a quarter. Run that, cross screen action, get him on the block, see what he can do. At Iowa, he was a guy that could work in the post. So, he's got a little fadeaway game. He's tall enough to shoot over the top of smaller defenders. I would like to do that, but like I said, between Mike and Doug, nobody's done it yet, so it probably will never happen. But I wonder why they wouldn't incorporate that a little bit more.
Yeah, 2 things on that. Number 1, don't look at his dad's Twitter account if you have that question, because he asks the same question, or he used to, at least, quite often. Number 2, you're right. At Iowa, he was like in the 98th percentile of scores in the post in the NCAA during his junior season, whatever, sophomore year. Like, he can absolutely score in the post. Now, whether that translates at the next level is a whole other question, because at 6'8", it isn't nearly as easy to go in the post and score as it was at the college level. But for me, I think he's aggressively attacked the rim all season long. He's dunked on plenty of people. He's dunked in traffic. He's showing me that he's a different player even than he was at the college level. And I would like to see him get more opportunities, whether it's off the bounce or whether you're featuring him as a post-up guy.
You think it seemed like a foregone conclusion that offer was a max offer coming this offseason. You think that's changed?
Oh, yeah.
You think it should change?
Yeah, I mean, you don't give a guy a max offer who's averaging 12 points a game.
Mhm.
Like, sorry, man. I mean, who's shooting 33% from 3 or whatever it is. Like, I would be surprised. I mean, like, at this point, he's looking way closer to like Cam Johnson money than he is, a max deal, like a 21, 22. Like, I would be surprised if his offer wasn't like a 480 or a 485 at this point. 4 years, 85 million, as opposed to the full max, which is almost double that.
I think that's fair. I don't think he's a max player. I think
it
that
felt
would
like
be,
he was tracking towards one. That was my point. Like,
Yeah.
I'm with both of you. It doesn't feel he's not, but we had him penciled in at the max contract not that long ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think last
It's like
season
we did Marvin Bagley.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, look, realistically, last season, he averaged 15 points and 5.5 rebounds, and he was on pace to be one of those guys. He's shooting even at 36% from 3, but he's taken a huge step backwards, and I don't even know I mean, a lot of it, to be honest with you, it's just flat out situational. Like, playing alongside DeMar DeRozan is not just super simple. And, it's not. And being the fourth and then fifth man in the rotation, like if DeMar wasn't signed, and I'm not blaming Keegan Murray, whatever's happening, just on DeMar DeRozan. But if you don't sign DeMar and you went after a more defensive minded, 3-and-D type at the 3 during this offseason, I do not think we would be feeling the same way we do about Keegan Murray that we do today. I think he would have built off the 15 points per game that he averaged last season, and probably would have been closer to what we're talking about, that max or $25 to $30 million a year player, not the 20 to 25 million a year player.
Kings basketball coming up about 2 hours from now. We'll come back. We'll talk more about the Sacramento Kings with our Kings insider from the Insiders. It's James Ham with Dealing with KC here on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320.
Look at this other half.
Them crumble cookies are popping. Is that what they are? Are those crumble cookies?
Oh, I haven't brought in crumbles in a long time for you guys.
Maybe it's not a crumble cookie. It just looks like one. It's a big cookie that I think you have to cut in half. Because the crumble cookie boxes are pink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that ain't a pink box. That's something else out there, Paul. I don't even know who brought those in. Ain't nobody here.
Back on Twitch, by the way, for the 8 who are looking for their house.
Oh, shout out to the Twitchies. The Twitches. We're back up there. 4 people watching on Twitch. We see you, baby. We see y'all.
Yeah, what's been going on with Twitch lately?
We got logged out of it, and we have to log back in through the guy in Philadelphia.
Oh.
So we're logged back in. It shouldn't be an issue anymore.
Okay.
TK, what up, girl? You still in New Orleans? She might be in the airport the way she's watching us and in the chat. She might be in the airport.
Yeah, she might be killing time.
Yeah, what's she up to?
I imagine she was at the Super Bowl yesterday. I imagine that airport was death to get out of today.
Oh, yeah.
She's debating on whether she's coming to San Francisco this weekend.
Pull up, man. Pull up, TK. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm driving down if Domas isn't in it. Like, once you've been to a couple of All-Star games, like, it kind of loses its luster, and that place is going to be a nightmare. Like, I don't even know about taking the train in there.
Man, they really beating Tom up. I did not think he was bad yesterday at all.
I don't think he's been bad all year, and people say he sucked all year.
I think repeatedly saying the red area like puts you on a list, but outside of that, I haven't hated him either. I think he got better throughout the year. It's not like Drew Brees. Drew Brees was horrible and just like stayed not
Drew
good.
Brees, awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful.
Oh, Dame. TK said she pulling up.
Is she really?
Now you're feeling like you got to go?
I text you, Tristan. We'll
talk. Did you have some parties lined up?
No. No? James, who are you talking to? You talking to Trista?
No, you.
No. James, what party I'm ever going to have lined up? James, I want to be in bed. I got plans Saturday night. I ain't going to be there Saturday night. I know that for sure. I got a date with Chef Q.
Hey.
Yeah, buddy.
Good.
See, regular Kings fan 916 gets me. The social battery is depleted.
Oh no.
Come on, man. Oh, no. So is the drive to the Bay Area battery.
Yeah, that one's tough.
Yeah, that one's tough because
though San Jose doesn't really feel like the Bay Area. I know that it is. It doesn't feel like
San Jose is like an extra 45 minutes.
It's hella far.
It's 4 hours to get to Santa Clara for the game for me, from my house.
From your house, yeah.
And then getting out of there, it's another 4-hour drive home. Like, that's not fun.
I don't think I'd ever go anywhere if I lived where James lives.
I have a pretty good spot. I got to be honest.
You do have a
There's
nice
not a lot of reason to go anywhere. People are like, "Hey, let's go to Tahoe." It's like, yeah.
It's a good question. Their ribeye is really good. I've ordered their ribeye twice. Those lobster bite appetizers, though, that's the one.
Wait,
Where is
Chef Q?
Q1227 at the promenade. They moved recently to the promenade at the Galleria.
Okay, so one of their sous chefs does private dinners, and we've hit a couple of those, including like he has people at his house.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Nice.
Sweet.
He has a side business where, like they did a dinner party at a friend of ours' house one night, and it was spectacular.
That man was really just on the ball all over the place yesterday.
Oh yeah.
He couldn't see it.
Mm.
Sometimes it's like that, man. But he couldn't see it. He didn't know where to go.
I haven't been there since they moved to their new spot. It used to be over by Paul Martin's, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's by like Ruth's Chris, that kind of promenade area outside the Caraway section of the mall where Gucci and Louis and all that stuff is.
Yeah.
This guy is
Right outside there.
wild.
We're coming back, James. I think that's the easiest way to describe that part of the mall.
Well,
The
why?
The
Why would it
Caraway
be?
section.
It's not even remotely close to being true. Stop. Like I said, he will believe you.
Because they know it's facts. Jeez. Welcome, James Hand back. James, you have any thoughts on the Super Bowl before we get back to the Kings? That stunk. That's your boy, too. That's your man.
It is his boy.
That was rough, man.
It was just one of the worst Super Bowls to watch I've ever seen. I just like from start to finish, it was boring. And like I know, hat tip to Philly for coming out and just pushing the Chiefs around. But I just thought Mahomes was horrible. And to watch him melt down, I'll tell you this though, in all honesty, he really has not been very good in like a year and a half. And I watch almost every game he plays because, we have him in our fantasy league and they find ways to win despite what's happening there. And he makes mistakes late in games. He makes all kinds of mistakes where you're just watching a game that doesn't, that isn't just like a clean, like super efficient game. And you put pressure on him and he just fell apart. I mean, the low passes, the not, seeing the safety or the linebacker and throwing passes you had no business throwing. I just thought it was absolutely wild to watch one of the greatest that's ever done it just melt down in a big game and realistically be the reason why his team had no chance.
Yeah.
All right, can we get to the real question? Or did you want to talk about the
Oh,
Super Bowl?
Jesus.
No,
I know
it's
it's
real
coming.
Okay, this is because James doesn't care. He is completely out of the demographic. Were you entertained by the halftime show?
I mean, not really. And it's, I talked to Complex about this earlier because Complex wouldn't watch a football game. And then,
Correct.
so
correct.
unless it was for the
He won't
halftime
watch
show.
a sporting event, to be clear. Like he won't watch a sporting event.
No, he won't watch a sporting event at all, but I think he would tune in for halftime of that
Correct.
game. And
Mhm.
like I thought, like, look, I get that he has a very specific audience that he's playing to. Kendrick was, and like the way he wanted to attack that was very specific. And Kyle like had a great time watching it and got it. But I don't know that that's what, like, it doesn't reach the masses like the Super Bowl does. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like and I'm not saying he has to play music that he doesn't feel comfortable with, or he has to only play his hits or stuff like that. But I do think that there is, like, when you are on that stage, you're playing for a larger audience. And I don't like country music either, and I wouldn't like sit there and choose to listen to a country artist. But like that was a very specific thing, and I just feel like there are ways that he could have been himself and had it reach like touched brought a few more people into the conversation. And again, if that's not what his idea was, that's okay. I move on because I also thought it was really weird that we had to wait 15 minutes before, the halftime performance started. And so it was like by the time you got done with the first half, which was one of the worst first halves we've ever seen, and then this huge long buildup to when he came out on stage, it was like, okay, I was already bored. And then it was like, okay, well, I don't know the music at all, really. And so it just kind of, for me, it was, I'm sure it was spectacular for some people, but
Me?
for me, it just wasn't there.
I don't
Okay.
know if there's an artist alive who could do what some people are asking.
hmm
Maybe Janet Jackson.
Janet Jackson would be
Maybe.
old for the younger generation. Be like, why are they putting her out here?
Well, no, but
Yeah,
I
but
think
you
like
think of. I'm sorry, Janet. I was just gonna say you think about like the household. Like if you're in a household, maybe like a number of different households would still like they'd be excited. They all know the song, sing the song, but
Mhm.
she may even be a reach. I don't know if there's an artist alive that crosses all the demographics.
no, but I think that what was it like 2 years ago? They had the hip hop. Oh, was it last? Was it 2 years? Was it 3 years
It was
ago?
in LA.
Mhm.
Last year was Rihanna, so I think it was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And that was phenomenal, off the charts good, and I think it crossed, like, there was something in there for everybody, and it was, like, surprising and fun, and they kept bringing in new voices, and they told the story of, like, the entire hip hop, like, 40 years of it or whatever, and I thought that that was really cool and engaging, and I think that there's some performers that just get up there and they either strike a chord or they don't. And, to me, I just think that it was very specific with this one, and that's okay. Again, I don't really care. It was like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it ends up being, and we move on to the next one. But it just wasn't like my favorite halftime, um, and that's okay.
I wonder who's gonna do it next. I think we're running out of
San Francisco next year.
in the pouring rain. I wonder.
It's fine, right?
I wonder how many. We're kind of running out of artists who we think is the idea type of person to perform on that stage without regurgitating people, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it, who
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it won't be E40.
definitely won't be E40, but we're talking Taylor is.
I mean, at some
obviously
point,
one.
Taylor's gonna do it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe she doesn't, but
Taylor is one. I mean, the one they should go to, but they probably never will. Although Grammy's made up with them, it should be Chris. I think Chris will put on maybe the greatest show since Mike Jackson.
Chris Brown.
Yeah,
Oh, I don't think that's happening.
it might not.
No.
But
I
I'm
don't think
saying
Chris Brown
we
is
always
gonna
thought
do
he'd
that.
never win a Grammy, and
Yeah.
that happened. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Okay.
But that's yeah. They're gonna have to start like going back into the people that they've already done before.
You might want to get the weekend in a non-COVID situation.
The weekend would be fire.
Yeah,
Actually. I thought he did a good job.
Well,
a
he
couple years
did,
ago.
but he was so limited
Yeah.
with what he could do. Even though COVID didn't exist in the NFL, maybe we try that.
I see people in the chat saying Bruno Mars. This would be Bruno's third
I
time
think it is.
in the last 15
I
years.
think
or
it'd be
something
his
like that.
third.
Yeah, Post Malone. People are saying Post Malone. You can't really do Journey because Steve Perry won't sing with him anymore, and so you're dealing with like this second replacement. Just because they're a San Francisco band, but
Post Malone for today's
Yeah.
audience could actually probably work.
Post Malone, I actually like him a lot more than others. And
By
I
others,
think
he
he's-
means me. He's referring directly to me. He likes him more than me.
And I think he's very talented.
Mhm.
I think I'd have no interest in watching him during
Yeah,
halftime.
me neither.
And I like Post Malone.
You'd
but
have to get all of his feature artists out.
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean that's all. Like I just think that it could have been, I don't know, more upbeat. Like there could have been like additional people and stuff like that. I don't know. Like
Squabble up, James.
He had a vision for it, and that vision was him. Like, that's why I think he did Man in the Garden. Like, he's like, I think that there was a specific reason he did that song. But yeah, I mean, he's the first hip hop solo act to do it. I mean, again, I loved it, but I knew it wasn't going to be for everybody, especially with that set list. It was definitely not going to, like, his catalog isn't going to go crazy after that set list. In all likelihood, GNX might, but maybe an interest in Kendrick Lamar will be there.
Someone said Travis. I think that would be pretty dope.
Well, Travis, because of the shows that he does, like, that could be nuts.
Travis would actually be pretty.
Yeah, and like, look, I wasn't like, oh, this is horrible. I just wasn't like fully drawn into it. Like sometimes you are with them, and I'd also say, like, I think there's something to, like, Sean Cunningham says this all the time, and I'm sure Sean loves it because Sean is a huge music guy.
Sean is the person we should ask who should be on the show.
But Sean always says that, like, Twitter and social media isn't real, and people who think that are really like overthinking everything, right? So I think, like, when you get to like the Twitter beef or the thing with Drake where they're going back and forth, like, there are people that are fully into that, but then there are tens of millions of other people that are watching the Super Bowl that have no idea what the beef is with Drake and all that stuff. They just don't, because they are not following it on social media. They're not watching the diss tracks. They have no idea what a diss track is, let alone watching to see what's going back and forth. And so I think by, like, being ultra specific with some of his stuff and aimed at one person, like, I get it. You win. He won, right? He dropped the mic and, okay, I won the battle because I just, did what I did at the Super Bowl. But there's a lot of people who just don't understand that was part of that. There's a whole thing going on there between those guys.
I saw a tweet, and I didn't dive into the comments. I probably should have, but I thought this was pretty cool. The guy tweeted out, he says, "Look, I'm not even a middle-aged white guy. I'm an older white guy. Somebody explain this Drake Kendrick thing to me in World War II type of way."
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty funny.
No, I mean, and again, I think, good on him for doing what he wanted to do and reaching, people he wanted to reach. As an artist, I think part of the Super Bowl, when you're put on that stage, is an opportunity to reach a whole new group of people that maybe have never heard of you or have no idea what you bring to the table. And that's where I think maybe there was like a slight misstep, that, if you want to bring some of your hits, more of your hits and stuff like that, to just, like, bring in more people, that would have been something. But either way,
and that's the thing with Kendrick, is he's never sacrificed his artistry, right? His current album is the furthest stray from anything he's ever done in his career. So he's everything he's doing right now is almost uncharted territory for him. Like, even the Super Bowl halftime show. Like,
who are my boys? Teen Spirit. Who's that? Who's that again?
Nirvana.
Yeah.
Nirvana.
No, Kurt Cobain has been dead for
decades.
That's
right. It is Kurt Cobain.
That's right. Yeah, he's been dead since like 93.
90s. Yeah. I think I was in middle school when he died.
That's right. That is Nirvana. Yeah.
We were going to school with WCW when Kurt Cobain died.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my song, man.
Okay. Yeah. No, it sounds like it.
The Foo Fighters. Yeah, that's the Foo Fighters could do it. But again, if it was in Seattle, then it would make a lot more sense for them to bring out Pearl Jam and Foo Fighters and stuff like that. But even that's gonna go, like, over a lot of people's heads, or just miss with a lot of people.
I'm just envisioning Jay-Z going, who would be great for this? The Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Oh, he does need to do it. Yeah, I don't think he would never. I don't think he would book himself for it.
I don't think so either.
But yeah, he absolutely should do it. Hammer, we've talked a lot, maybe too much, about the game on Saturday, but one thing that really, really stood out that Kenny and I spent most of the first part of today's show talking about is the job Doug Christie did and the tough decisions he had to make there, particularly late in the fourth quarter, where that game got maybe a little bit closer than anybody believes it should have been. And we saw Keon Ellis, despite coming off the bench, he played 32 minutes in that game, played 18 minutes in the second half, played 11 minutes in the fourth quarter. We saw DeMar DeRozan sit some time out. We saw Malik Monk sit some time out there in that fourth quarter. But what do you think of the job that Doug did to ensure that his guys came away with a victory on Saturday?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Everyone wants Keon to play as many minutes as possible. I think Doug wants Keon to play as many minutes as possible. But at the end of the day, you also have to respect the veterans you have on your team while trying to win games. And I think as we get deeper and deeper into this season, there is going to be more of a reliance on a guy like Keon and less of a reliance on some of the veterans when they're not having a good night or when they're not doing the things you need them to do. And there is definitely a time and a place for what DeMar DeRozan does, right? But on the defensive side of the ball, he's a pretty substantial liability. And you're just a better team defensively when Keon Ellis is on the court. And that's something that Doug is going to have to figure out the entire season. And some nights it won't be him. Some nights it'll be Keegan Murray who's not getting it done. And you need to go with a smaller player. And I think Keegan did sit for a few minutes in the fourth. And certainly the game before that, it was Keon over Keegan for a few minutes. There's going to be times when Malik isn't rolling, and you've got to make adjustments. But I think Keon has put the pressure on this team to find ways to get him involved in the game, and I think that's a great thing for the Kings. It pushes everybody to be better, and if someone doesn't like it, then just straight up play better. Guard your man, do your defensive assignment, and Keon won't steal your minutes. But for right now, he's going to steal your minutes. There'll be moments where Jake LaRavia steals some minutes and crunch time.
He's going to steal some minutes.
Yeah.
Legend.
There will be times where you lose out to some of these other players, and that's what a rotation is about. Like, you have your closing rotation, but your closing rotation should always come with, okay, who gives me the best opportunity to win tonight? And sometimes that's not going to be the guys that you've relied on throughout the first, 50 games of the season where you're 500.
Yeah, and I thought the way that Doug played it on Saturday was interesting, and he did a great job with it. There was a moment in there where, CJ was going crazy, and there just wasn't really any matchups for CJ outside of Keon. So he kept Keon in there, subbed DeMar out, and probably was like a minute and a half later, they had gotten a couple stops that they needed. They needed a bucket, and he calls a timeout, and he subs them right back in there. So I thought that was a really good use of situational strategy by Doug Christie in the final minutes of that game on Saturday to kind of bring that win home.
Yeah, I'd also tell you that I think it became easier for Doug when it's not De'Aaron, because De'Aaron can play defense in those situations. So you're not going to take the two-way player off the court, where I think it does become easier when it's either Zach or it's DeMar or it's Malik. None of those three can even come close to matching the defensive intensity of Keon Ellis, where, De'Aaron can come close to it. He's not as good, but he could come close to the defensive side, and then you get a much better offensive player. So now I think it does open a door for, a few more variables to play themselves out late in the game.
How you feel about tonight? Anthony Davis is out for the foreseeable future for Dallas. They're reeling emotionally and physically, and they got protests happening outside their arena. Poor Nico Harrison can't even show up for work right now. And here come the Sacramento Kings just trying to win a basketball game.
Yeah, I think they got a nice lift today when Kyrie Irving was named an NBA All-Star. So that's one thing. But
Sure.
Overall, look, this is a game where the Kings should be looking at an injured, depleted roster. And even some of the guys that might play tonight, like a PJ Washington, has a rolled ankle and missed time. I think he left their last game with an ankle problem. Again, they're missing, their stud backup center. Why am I drawing a blank?
Gafford?
No, Gafford's there. The other one.
Lively's
Derek Lively.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lively's out and probably out for the rest of the season. they have some holes in the rotation, and so this is a team you need to go in there and try to take advantage of, especially if you have any hope of getting over 500 by the All-Star game. Again, teams cash it in right now. The Kings cannot cash it in. They dug themselves way too deep of a hole, and if they can come out of the All-Star break 3 games over 5, go into the All-Star break and out of it at 3 games over 500 versus where they are today, that would be huge because they have games that they can win right out of the All-Star break. They could start climbing up the standings very quickly. But you got to win the games right here in front of you before you get the getaway games.
James, and you can correct me if this is off a little bit, but shout out to Jill Adge. I saw her. She mentioned this, and this is actually a good point when we talk about the NBA and all this other stuff. When you talk about injury replacements, doesn't the commissioner, Adam Silver, doesn't he just go down the list? So it's not like he selected Kyrie Irving. It's the list of who was next getting the votes from the coaches.
Oh, I've never heard that. That might be the case, but I thought it was it's Adam Silver's discretion. He gets to make the ultimate decision.
I thought I had heard before that he, whatever the votes were on the list, he goes down to who's next on that list.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible he can do that, but he also has, he's the commissioner. He has the discretion to choose whoever he wants. Like injury replacements are on the commissioner, just like the original team is a combination of players and fans and all that stuff, and then the next vote, whoever gets in next, is all about the coaches. Yeah, this is a Adam Silver decision, and it is what it is.
It sucks, is what it is.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I just think it's bad form. Like, to be honest with you, like Domantas Sabonis is a very good player on a team that's in a playoff hunt, just like the rest of the teams all around him. And so I don't know. He should be an all-star. His numbers say he's an all-star. He'll be all NBA, but not an all-star. And that to me is a complete failure on the coaches / whatever it is at this point, whether it's Adam Silver or whoever else. Like, the dude is an all-star, and he brings his game every single night. Leads the league in rebounding, leads the league in offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, total rebounds, and is in the top 5 in 3-point percentage. That's just crazy.
Yeah, it is, man. He deserves better. He deserves better. But hopefully he can go out there and play well tonight. I mean, he certainly played well on Saturday. That's kind of one of the lost things in all of this is, the amount of shot attempts that DeMar took, Malik missing, those guys being in and out of the lineup in favor for Keon. Lost is the fact that you guys mentioned it. Keegan played really well the other night, but Domas was great. Mm-hmm. He just continues to consistently be really, really good for the Sacramento Kings, and they're going to need him to be great tonight.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, he's one of the top 10, 15 players in the league. And, again, the Kings have relied on him so heavily, and they need to rely on him even more right now as they're learning how to play together. They need to rely on him to make the right plays and to play through him more than they have so far. And I think it would make everything way easier. Like, he needs to be the guy who's literally distributing who's going to get how many shots. And that's how I would handle it. I mean, there's a guy who averaged 8 assists a game last year. Let him make most of the decisions and play from there.
I chuckle a little bit, Ham, because you mentioned it and you're right. We talked about it as well. They got to win these games. They can't coast into the All-Star break. Like, you got to, man, dare I say, you got to find a way to go 3-0 in these next 3 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you got to do it. Mm-hmm. Every game matters, and that's just life as the Sacramento Kings right now, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's good stuff. Look at the game against the Pelicans. They gave up a 40-point performance, a 30-point performance, and a 20-point performance. 91, 92 points between 3 guys, and they still won. Like, go out there. This Dallas team should not be able to beat you. And the way that they're constructed, the way they're beat up. So we'll see.
Great stuff from James as always. You can catch more of James and Kyle on the Insiders beginning at 10 a.m. And hopefully we're talking about a Kings victory tomorrow, man. Hopefully we can get a little momentum built headed into this All-Star break. We had a nice little boost of momentum from the Sacramento Kings when Del Christie took over as the head coach. Let's see if they can take that same type of energy now that the Jake LaRavia era has begun here in Sacramento.